All right, so the topic of this presentation is a machine learning approach to triaging economic quarters to forecasting inflation. Um, my name is Saied Beckford, as you've just heard, and I was mentored by Dr. Gina Peters at the University of Chicago. So now, policymakers within the United States, uh, um, policymakers within the United States uh, central banks have two specific duties. First is inflation stability, price stability, with which is inflation stability, and maximum unemployment. This project is going to focus on the inflation stability portion. Now, forecasting inflation in the long run is a rather simple task, as there are current theoretic foundations which help economists to do that. However, forecasting inflation in the short run is rather difficult, and knowing this information is wildly beneficial, because if we don't, then policymakers are basically making policy decisions in the unknown side, which could have grave repercussions on a country's purchase on the dollar of a country's purchasing power. This specifically, knowing this information can aid in these times, specifically through this COVID crisis, where policymakers are at is somewhat lost in terms of knowing how each shifting factors are affecting the inflation rate, such as the reduction in production, the reduction in consumption, and the unemployment rate. So the main purpose of this project, what I'm trying to test, is to see if it is that machine learning methods can assist us in predicting short-run inflation. Now, machine learning is a vastly underutilized method in the field of economics, and so that is why I want to bridge the gap. I'm going to do this in a three-tier process. First, it is that I'm going to use a k-means clustering algorithm to group various behavioral factors of the economy. The attributes of this k-means clustering include the output gap, real GDP, nominal GDP, unemployment, the exchange rates for both the U.S. and Eurozone, and the China and the U.S. In addition to that, we are going to have a core and headline, PCE and CPI, and the NASDAQ composite index. Now, how is it that we're going to select these clusters? Now, under some circumstances, people randomly select these clusters and let the chips fall where they may. But in this specific case, we tried two approaches. The first approach we tried was called the elbow approach, which suggested that 70 years of data can be divided into three clusters, and those three clusters demonstrated similar behavioral pattern. We also used a silhouette analysis, for which that then said that you should not use three clusters, but instead use four, and I will show you why in a second. We then used convolutional neural networks to predict the coefficients and to essentially zoom in on the differences that are happening at the root level of each of these economic variables. And then what these neural networks then do is push this information out to the first layer so that it can become easier to start predicting the inflation pattern. After this, we then use an extreme gradient descent to predict what inflation will be. Now, what you're seeing here is the result of the silhouette analysis. A silhouette analysis ranges from -1 to 1. The closer it is to 1, the better it is that it is saying that you should use that many clusters. So if you can see on the first table, the 4 has the highest silhouette score. However, when we push this data through a PCA, we then see that score for 4 was still, we can see that it is still 4. However, we can see that it is much more optimized. Now, these are the results of the prediction for the inflation rates. We have both core PCE and core CPI. Now, the reason why I did this multifaceted approach as opposed to just predicting inflation in itself is because as policymakers, when we find out information, we have to know what steps to take with that information. So when we find out what it is that CPI or PCE is going to be, we then look at the other economic variables that we have, and then we try to group it with the clusters that we have. And then after doing that, policymakers can engage in a retrospective approach as relates to policy effectiveness. So this is what inflation is currently, and we group it with these other clusters. What policies did we take back then? How effective were those policy steps? And so now we can just compare that to what we're seeing in the present and determine what policy recommendation we want to take from there. These are a list of my sources. Thank you very much.